Hi, everyone, and welcome to our book creator webinar, Publishing for Authentic Audiences, Creating with a Purpose. My name is Monica Burns. I'm an ed tech and curriculum consultant based here in New York, book creator ambassador, and an Apple Distinguished Educator. I'm so excited to be here with you today to share one of my favorite creation tools and how you can use it to publish for authentic audiences. And so you'll see I'm running double duty today with managing us here. So you'll see me moving through the slide deck on the left and then coming out to our GoToWebinar control panel to take questions and all of that great stuff as we get started. So this is one in our monthly webinar series. Before we jump in, I'm going to push out some poll questions to you, just so I can get a better feel of who is with us live on the call tonight. So you should see your screen change over. And it asks, how familiar are you with Book Creator? So you can select one of the following three choices. Maybe you're a pro, you've used it a couple times, you're totally new to this tool. So I see about half of us, our votes are in for our group tonight. You might be watching this on recording on the YouTube channel, which I'll talk about in a moment before we leave today. So it seems like looking at the breakdown, about half of us feel really strong with Book Creator, which is fantastic. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of good stuff tonight to kind of help you level up with using this tool. A few of us are brand new, and then a handful have used it a few times. Awesome. So what grade levels do you teach? Now you can choose more than one answer for this. So if you work with a couple different grade levels, go ahead and tap on the ones that are applicable to you. So it looks like most of us, and I see those votes are still coming in, most of us work within that K5 band. There's some teachers who work with 6-8, some with 9-12 too. It looks like we're a little heavy on the elementary side, which is great. I come from a one-to-one iPad classroom right there in the middle. I'm out of the classroom now. I'm doing this type of work and helping teachers use my favorite tools. But I have a sweet spot right there in the middle. It looks like we're covering that K-12 band today. And then our last question, just to help frame some of the examples that I'll give, and you might have more than one answer for this as well. What subject areas do you teach? So are you focusing in ELA, math, science, social studies? All of the above. So you might click off all four of them. Are you maybe teaching foreign language or in the media lab of your school? If you fall into that other category, go ahead and type into the question box, which you'll see on the right-hand side. Go ahead and type in there what other subjects you work with. It'll just help me get a feel for where you're at so that I'm giving examples that work with you. So go ahead, if you haven't found it already, I'm going to close this poll. Looks like more than half of us teach ELA at least some part of the day. About a quarter teach science and social studies, a little bit of math thrown in there too. So if you're looking at the GoToWebinar control panel, which is that panel that pops up on the right-hand side of your screen, if it disappeared, you might just see an orange arrow. That's going to be your collapse button. Sometimes it'll collapse by itself and you can hit that orange button to toggle and show it again. But you'll see there's a question box. What'll pop up there is it will be kind of your way of communicating with me so that I can give a shout out and address any of your questions. So as I'm looking in there right now, I see there's some teachers who work within STEM, robotics, ESL, transition education, all of the elementary grades. So great. Periodically, I'm going to prompt you over the course of tonight's webinar to take a peek at that question box, type in any questions that you have. I'll ask you to kind of respond to prompts and things that I ask the group. So that's going to be your place to do that. If you're watching this recorded on YouTube, you're going to hear some of the things we talk about, and I'm sure it'll connect to some of the things that you're thinking. And then, of course, if I don't pause and you have a question, place your questions in that question box, because there's going to be times where I pause and I will peek in there, and it'll be a chance for me to make sure I'm talking about the things that are important to you. So you'll notice that you are automatically muted, being an attendee in here, since there's a bunch of us popping around and asking questions and all of that. You're going to use this question box as your way to kind of get in touch if you have a question as we go through. So as I mentioned, tonight we are talking about publishing for authentic audiences and creating with a purpose. So really turning students into authors who know the who and the what and the why behind the work that they're doing. So this is one in a series of monthly book creator webinars we've been doing. This is our November webinar. If you look back and you head over to YouTube and you go to Book Creators channel, you'll find video recordings for all of the other webinars you've done in this monthly series this past year in 2016. Stay tuned. You'll want to make sure you check back to the page you signed up with at Book Creators website, their awesome training page, for more webinars that are down the pipeline. We'll also have a Getting Started with Book Creator webinar in December that'll be live too. So you might feel good like you're a pro at this tool, but if you're watching and there's something I maybe move a little too fast over tonight, or you're thinking, I wish I could share these resources with my colleagues or the people who follow you on Twitter or any of that great stuff, those links will be there as well. And then, of course, they can join us, and you can join us live for another free webinar in December as well. So tonight we're talking about publishing for that authentic audience and creating with a purpose. And we'll talk about that term, authentic audience, and what we mean as we go through today. We'll talk about how you can combine books. So when your kids are creating collaborative books for an audience, we'll talk about combining books. We'll talk about what happens when you finish your book that you've made on Book Creator that you and your students have created, and how you can go about sharing those products, and which way to export and share for different types of audiences. And we'll also talk about some tips for finding your authentic audience. Sometimes we're making and making and making things in our classroom, and we just want to figure out who's going to benefit, who's going to see that, and who your kids can share their great work with. So those are all things we're going to talk about together today. So as I mentioned, if you have questions in that GoToWebinar panel, if it goes away on the right hand on your screen, you hit that orange button, it'll pop up, and you can type in any questions that you have. So getting us started and thinking about Book Creator, well, Book Creator is a terrific tool for students and teachers. Kids can use it at home independently or with your guidance in the classroom. Some apps, you open it up, it has levels and steps and instructions and all sorts of things to follow along, like that one pathway for your kids to take. Well, Book Creator is an open-ended creation tool. That means you can do with this tool what you want to. You can make that experience completely customizable for you and your students. So it's open-ended, meaning you have a blank canvas that you're working with to create and share, making it wonderful for K-12. And there's not many tools you can say are wonderful for kindergarten and pre-K students as they are for high school students, but this is definitely one of them where you can really tailor it to whatever group of kids you're working with. So it's a completely customizable experience. So your students might use a lot of audio, a lot of illustrations, a lot of text, their own illustrations, or some screenshots and things that they've done in other apps. Totally customizable. But your end product is going to be that book. You're going to create a book and publish a book. So tonight when we're together, we're going to be talking about Book Creator, the iPad app, although you know if you've played around with it before that it's available on other platforms. Book Creator, remember, has a free version. You can download and make your one book. a paid version, which gives you an endless number of books, including the comic book templates. And you have the opportunity to make that purchase for your school with the volume purchasing program. If you know you're going to be using Book Reader on multiple devices, you get that awesome discount. And so my email is right down at the center, at the bottom of the screen, Monica at Class Tech Tips, if you're having trouble finding that or making that happen. And of course, bookreader.com is where you're going to find all the good stuff from Book Reader to help you get started as well. So tonight we're talking about authentic audiences and really making sure that our kids' work has eyes and ears on it to show off the great things that are happening in your classroom and the terrific learning experiences your students are participating in. So whenever you have kids go off on different projects, and we're not talking so much about specific subject areas or projects today, we've covered that in some of the other monthly webinars, but no matter what it is you've decided to do, you want to make sure your kids have clear expectations. They know what it is that they're going to be doing. You've modeled for students those best practices, whether it's how to search and choose the right image or snap a picture or change the background of their page. You've practiced that workflow with them. So if you know that they're going to be taking some text they've typed up in another app, or they're going to be taking screenshots, they know how to bring that into their page. And you've provided options for students, whether that's giving them lots of choices for what topics they're exploring, some differentiated tasks where they'll be working in a way that might be a little bit different than their neighbor but suited to their needs. All of those things kind of fall into that best practice category. So those are what I'd love for you to have in the back of your mind as we jump in for today. And I'm going to ask you to head over in your GoToWebinar control panel to that question box again. And I want you to type in, and you might type in a couple different answers, like you're tweeting up a storm or something. What are some ways you've shared student work with an audience? So what are some of the ways you've gotten your students' work maybe off of the page or out of your classroom or off of a device to share with other people? Go ahead and take a moment to type into that question box some of the ways you've shared your students' work with an audience. I love that Catherine says how she's printed out some of a students' work to share with an audience. Jess talks about sharing with Seesaw. Seesaw is a wonderful tool that works great with Book Reader. Sylvia shared videos and that her students have made with Book Reader. We're going to talk about that today, so awesome. So glad you mentioned that, Sylvia. Jean has shared student work on YouTube. Diana talked about classroom blogs and social media. Love it, love when students have that audience that's so authentic, right? That school Facebook page, really tapping into all of those things, posting on school website. Thanks, Kathy, for sharing that. Joe's grabbed links from Dropbox and Google Drive. Great. Oh, Jackie mentioned Skype. I see a lot of other great things coming in. Keep those coming. You might remember a great project as we're jumping in today. So when we talk about authentic audiences, they come in lots of different shapes and sizes. And so we're going to talk about a couple collaborative ideas first. You might have seen some of these fantastic case studies on Book Reader's blog. If you head over to Book Reader's website, they have a whole education area with these great case studies and different subject areas you can search through. And I want to share a couple with you, and then we'll talk about how you can combine student creations. So if you want your students to work together to reach their audience, you can have partnerships of all shapes and sizes. So there's a great story with some Apple Distinguished Educators grade 2 and grade 11 partner classes who were able to take illustrations as inspiration for stories and work together through both simple illustrations to more dynamic graphic designs working together. And that bit.ly that you see at the very bottom of the screen, you can access that there, or you can find this by just typing it into Book Reader on their site as well. Another awesome one, and this highlights some of the great audio that you can record and include in your stories, having kids share their experiences of what life is like at their particular school. This one page comes from the Avenue School in New York City. And so we'll talk about how a book like this, when you have pages coming from all over the place, lots of different schools collaborating, you can bring them together in a book as one final project. And then, of course, ABC books, which I absolutely love. Great way to have kids working together towards a common goal. Here you see students in this particular class each have their own page that they're working on with their own letter. And so we'll talk about how you can have kids, say their audience is going to be the iBook store, like you see here, right? Everything's uploaded, ready to download. You can go search for this one and find it. If you know you're giving that global audience for your group, that you may find that it's easier to get started by creating a collaborative project first, where all your kids get together. When we talk about sharing student work with a large or small audience, you might want to bring them all together for a collaborative project. So if you want to have students each make their own page in Book Creator, you could set it up in lots of different ways. It might be a short-term project where you're just working on something for, maybe a week or so, and you have kids make a page or 2 pages that document what they've learned about a particular topic. You might have partner school projects like the global book from the Avenue School we peeked at earlier, where you might have each school make 1 or 2 pages, submit them to the school or the teacher who's in charge, and that teacher puts all those pages together to create a book. Or you might have class books, which are terrific if you have kids just starting off with a tool, no matter how big or small they might be. You might have a page that goes with a class book where kids are simply recording their voice or making a video. Or you might have a class page where kids are having lots of text, recording a lot of audio for their audience. Just really depends. So we'll start off by talking about that workflow for combining student creations, and then we'll take a look at some ways that you can find some audiences for your kids before talking about sharing out as well. So if you have your students make their own page in a book, they can focus on whatever it is that you've directed them to. Remember, Book Creator is an open-ended creation tool, so it really has to do with the directions you give students and the modeling you do for them. So this is an ecosystem example. In this example, this page belongs to the letter E. The ecosystem is the word that goes within this ebook. If you will, this ABC ebook. And so ecosystem, the definition is there on the page. You see the audio button, which if you tap on that audio button, it'll play aloud those words that you see record, kind of like the recording of those words up at the top of the screen. And you see an image in the center. I want to give a shout out. You see at the very bottom there, the image has the Creative Commons citation right there. This is from a website I love talking about when we talk about Book Creator, especially when kids are going out to find different images. This is a website called photosforclass.com. It advertises itself as a kid-friendly search engine, and just like any search engine, you want to take any of those kind of terms lightly, right? We know when it comes to internet searches, nothing's perfect, but I've had great success using this photosforclass.com. And what's really special about it is it'll give you the citation right down there at the bottom. So if your kids are putting a page together, it always makes me feel a little bit better about that idea of them practicing good digital citizenship. So back to our idea of combining student projects, let's imagine that each student has their own page in this ABC book. So we're going down here to the bottom, and I've exited out of my book. So this is my main landing page. If you've used Book Creator before, this should be a familiar view. And what you're going to do down here at the bottom is you're going to hit that export button. I was visiting a school recently, and they called this the Share-O button because it has the share button with the arrow. And so when you hit that button, you have options to export as an EPUB is what you are going to do. So there's a couple different ways. If you have each individual student export this as an EPUB, you want it all to go to one Book Creator on one device. So it's kind of like saying I'm the editor and everyone's submitting their page to me because I'm going to compile them together into one book. So when you go to export as an EPUB, there's a few different ways you can export this. AirDrop is awesome. Absolutely love AirDrop if that's working in your classroom. You want to make sure your kids have the settings on that. They can tap on you and they can automatically, if you've AirDrop before, you know that bing noise, and that'll pop up. And then you can get everyone's work, their one page to your device that way, assuming that you as a teacher are going to be the editor and a compiler of this. If that doesn't work, you can go, if you don't have AirDrop, another great option is to have kids mail it off of their device. That's what I'm going to show you first. So you can have students mail it. It'll go as an attachment. They can send it to you here, and then when you open it up on your device, you have it as something that you can tap and download. The same thing if someone sent you a Word file or a PDF file, it's just an attachment into your email. When you tap on this, you'll see it'll show you that it's ready to go, and then you have the option to open it up in Book Reader. So if you have Book Reader loaded on your device, it should show up here at the top. So if you already have Book Reader on your iPad, it'll give you the option to open it into Book Reader. If it doesn't show up right away, you keep scrolling through and you'll see that Book Reader pops up. When you hit copy to Book Reader, then you can open it up and you'll notice that that page is to my right there. You'll create a new book where you want all of these new pages to go. And when you tap the bottom of the screen to that plus sign, now instead of creating a brand new book and exiting this title page of our ABC book, you're going to go ahead and hit Combine Books. What this is going to let you do, it's going to let you combine all of your kids' letters of the alphabet, if you will, all of their pages into one book. So if you hit that, you can go ahead and it'll show you all the books that you've saved in your library. So I've got the letter T, the letter E ready to go, hoping that more letters will come their way so I can combine them all into one book. When I do that and tap all the ones I want combined, you'll see I can come back to my book, open it up, go to my Pages button up here at the top, and this is where I have my letters. Now, if your kids are sending you all of their letters of the alphabet in all different orders, what you can do is when you open them all up here, you combine them all up into one book, you can hold on to one of your pages and they're going to wiggle, just like when your apps icons wiggle when you want to move them around on your home screen. And then you'll be able to rearrange them so you have your pages in the correct order. So if you have students that are making all of these pages, you're going to combine them into one book for your audience. This is a great way to publish everyone's work together in one place. You just have to have your one iPad, your one device that becomes the editing device, if you will. Remember, as I'm going through here, I'll pause occasionally, but if you have any questions about any of the things that I mentioned or I talked about, go ahead and make sure you type them in. So Jess asked a question. So perfect, just as I was saying that, I'm glad you knew you could type it in. Jess asked if you have to have the kids complete a page from inside the book or if they can use that first page, which is like the default cover page. Great question. So if you come back out here, and I'm going to move up a couple slides just so you can see it. My E letter was the first page, right? I just jumped right in. I didn't worry about hitting that arrow and going to new pages, right? So I had my E here, and it has the cover page here, but it doesn't really matter which one it is. It'll work with your cover if you just jump right in. So I'm coming back down here, see my E is my cover. This is the one that I was sharing via email here. Opened up and it became this other book you see here on the right hand of the screen, and then I'm just combining those books. So it doesn't have to be a particular page number. You're going to be good to go when you do that as well. So Sylvia asked about the AirDrop. So sharing things on AirDrop. We'll talk about that more a bit later, but I'll pop it up now just so you can feel good about it, right? So AirDrop is awesome. What AirDrop lets you do is it lets you take something on one device and drop it to another iOS device. Now, when you're on your iPad and you swipe up from the bottom, that's where your you're like maybe putting your iPad on airplane mode sometimes, or you're turning on the Wi-Fi that way, right, or changing the volume. You'll also see the AirDrop button. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to turn, and you're going to want your kids to do that, is turn it on so that it is open for your contacts. So, and it'll say something like contacts only or everyone. If you do contacts only, that means that all your kids' iPads or whatever iTunes ID they have associated with it has to be in your like contact book. That can be a little tricky. So your best bet is to turn it on to everyone. What it'll do is it'll find people nearby. So that's going to be people in your classroom, maybe in the class next door if you have really strong Wi-Fi, and that's going to let them drop their page to you. They can drop any file this way from you, talking to your one device to another device. It's just another workflow tool. I think it's an awesome one, and that's something that you might want to think about. It might pop up all the kids' names and their devices right here. That seems like it might be a little messy. You can always just have them mail it or share it through another LMS with you as well. So while we're talking about these group projects where kids might be coming together for an audience, or if your kids are making their own book, but you know you're going to share them all with the library in your community, and you want them to be just right or just perfect. And so what you're going to do is you're going to create templates for your kids. You don't have to do this. You can give them lots of space or some directions and more freedom. But if you want to create a template, it's a really great way to get your kids on the same page if you are working towards publishing for a really specific audience, or you know your kids are going to combine all their pages and you just want them to look similar so that they're, have a little bit of the same features and the same design. So templates are really just your outlines for pages. It could be something where kids fill in the blank and kind of like a checklist almost, so they know that they have all the things they should have. So for example, you can create a page. Maybe you create a page in Keynote and you save it as an image, and the kids put it on the back of their device, back of their page when they open it on their device. Or maybe you create an outline like this in Book Creator and just share that page with your kids the same way that they were sharing pages with you when they were combining their book. So this is one example of a kind of cover page you can have as a template where your kids will just drag their name and their date and type that in to fill in the blank. You might say everyone in the green box, you're going to put the title of your story. In the purple box, you're going to find a picture that goes along with your story. Same example here with this kind of about me page, right? You might say to the kids, I want you to take a selfie video and plug it into this box, and I want you in the purple rectangle to list 2 things about you that make you special or unique, right? So when you make a template, it's just a way of keeping all the kids kind of in the same page and giving them some guidance about what it is you want them to write on a particular page. So before we talk about some tips for finding your authentic audience, I want you to think back to our idea of having kids collaborate and work together for a published piece. So when they're creating with a purpose, they're publishing something, they're coming together. While I look over to see what other questions have popped in, go ahead and share in that question box one way you could have your students collaborate and work together with Book Creator. All right, as you're typing that in, I see Sylvia mentioned about when I was talking about AirDrop. Yep, it's very similar to that. You're using your Bluetooth. You can actually AirDrop from a Mac computer to an iPhone if you wanted to. You should see it pop up as an option on your iPad. If you have an older iPad, it might not be an option if you're using like an older operating system, but at this point it's pretty standard as a workflow, especially on the newer updated devices. So I can double check if you want to, Sylvia. You can always email me a screenshot. I could take a peek at it if you don't see it popping up right away. So coming back to our question, our let's share prompt, and of course you're more than welcome to keep asking questions about the things I mentioned earlier, and I'll peek at them as we go through. Diana said she could envision her students collaborating in BookReader to make a group science journal. Kathy said she could see it as an artifact for documenting a clothes drive that young adults set up for a local group. Love that connection of community service and telling that story about the great things that your kids are doing. Jackie said that she could see her students designing a digital solution to a question that they've been given. Great. And Jess said that she's used that they've used that BookReader template before to complete nonfiction text feature. Awesome. Yep, and Jess, I'm so glad you mentioned that too about airdropping photos that they've found. So if kids have found and really great photos, they can airdrop it even to one or another. That's one of those things where you just want to set up those kind of sharing and workflow when you're working with your group. If you have more ideas about ways your kids could collaborate with BookReader, make sure you keep adding them into the question box. I'll take a peek back at them. And as we're moving through and talking about authentic audiences, that's always a place you can place some questions in as well. So when we talk about creating with a purpose, you might have your kids come together and make a collaborative book, or they're making their own individual book and sharing them in the way we'll talk about momentarily. You may also decide that you want a very specific audience to see them. And so when we talk about authentic audiences, this is really where we want to connect to the real world. Who is going to see your students' creations? What is it that they're going to be telling them? When are you going to share this work that your kids have done with this audience? And why have you chosen that particular audience? So you might know that your kids have participated in a fantastic field trip. They document all the things that they've learned. They take that book and they share it with the park ranger who took them on that tour. You know that your students are creating books that that document a particular part of the town's history. They're going to turn those books that they made a BookReader into videos and share them on the school's Facebook page. So the whole idea with creating an authentic audience is making sure that there's eyes on the great work that your kids are doing. You want people to see what's happening. You want to make sure your kids have some buy-in. There's a real world connection to what's happening within the four walls of your classroom. So there should be a clear plan from sharing. You should kind of advertise and get kids excited about that, who is going to see their work right from the get-go, really setting a purpose for their writing and their creations that they're making with BookReader. So this is something where you're going to want to continuously follow this up during the process while your kids are making something to show and share the ways that the work that they do with BookReader will really impact an audience or a group of people. So I want to share with you 5 tips for really zooming in and focusing in on a particular audience. So you can look nearby. You might choose a partner class to be your audience. If you're working with a group of 4th graders, you might record books that have audio features built in because your audience is going to be that kindergartner classroom down the hall. So older students or younger students. If you're working in a 5th grade classroom, you might say the books that we make, we're going to share with the other 5th graders so that they can learn about the topic we've been studying, kind of like a big jigsaw. Or it might be someone who's nearby in your school. So a familiar face, a special guest. So maybe you bring in someone who works in your school's front office. You have them sit in and listen to some of the books that you've made. Maybe you are teaching an English language arts class in 6th grade, and you know your kids are doing a whole unit on healthy eating or goal setting, and you bring in a physical education teacher so he or she can listen to what your kids have created. So looking nearby so your kids know that there's someone who is interested and excited could be within your school. It could be some faraway friends. So you might connect with someone, say someone who taught in a school that you taught and you both kind of went into different directions and different geographic regions. You might connect your classes virtually that way. You might have a friend or family member who is a docent at a museum or who gives tours at the local zoo. And so you might say, our kids are working on a particular topic that relates to your field of expertise. We would love for you to Skype in and listen in and while our kids read our books aloud. Or can you comment on the books that we uploaded on this topic to the iBook store? So connecting those faraway people who you're excited about what's happening generally in your classroom and then can serve as that audience. You might also have some local supporters, so far away, meaning outside of your building, but not so far. Maybe it's a local congresswoman who wants to come in and visit, your town's mayor who stops by and has a special event. Even sending someone from their office is a really great way to get that buy-in for your kids and know that someone special is looking and really cares about their work. I heard earlier a few of you mentioned that you had posted student work maybe on a district Facebook page, on a class Twitter account. That's an awesome way to get it out into the world. You can also use those social connections. So it might be something like an expert you've located on Twitter, a favorite author that you're doing like an author study and having kids write books within their style, and you're going to tweet it out to that person. Someone who is really a champion of a particular cause, who cares deeply about a topic that you're studying. Maybe you're studying ecosystems and you find someone who's really passionate about climate change and you want to have them Skype in and talk to your kids and show them that what they're doing is really important. Same thing goes with folks who might be really excited about what kids are doing in your classroom because they're their kids, right? Invite family members, invite community members. This is a great way to have kids create products that are accessible for large audiences. So one of the neat things about BookReader is that there's a lot of accessibility features in there. So you might have kids take them into mind when they're creating for a particular community audience. You might have a large celebration like a family literacy night where kids are sharing the books that they've made, or you might even have an installation where these books, those links, those videos, and we'll talk about the sharing in a moment, are connected to QR codes or augmented reality triggers as a way to get them off of device, off of walls, if you will, and the kids can scan and show off and just have a big installation as well to really connect kids with an audience is a nice way to do that too. And finally, your audiences could be more connected to students' overall digital work over the course of a school year. They might have culminating projects that really showcase their work. So you might have kids' audience be more of kind of that big portfolio. They're making something they're going to take with them on to the next grade. They're going to show off over the course of the development of the product, but also something as a way to really speak to what they've accomplished during their time with you in your classroom over the course of the year. So there's a couple great examples, or I'm just going to feature a couple of the many great examples, I should say, on BookReader's website. When you're looking for inspiration to publish for that authentic audience, there's a great story about kids coming together and making products that are shared with their peers, and those bit.lys are down here at the bottom, but you of course can find this with the title on BookReader's awesome website in their terrific case studies section. Thinking about the world is my audience, a really great movement about getting kids thinking about the way that they are making things for everyone. And you'll see that hashtag is part of that movement as well. So once your kids have made something, right, maybe it's their collaborative project, you've edited and kind of put together in one book with all their pages, or they completed something with pairs or in small groups or independently, you'll want to think about the way that you will get their work off of their device and into the hands of their audience. So we're going to come back here to our ABC book as an example of sharing. And so you have a few different ways to share student work, and we're going to highlight those pieces here. You can export as an EPUB, as a PDF, or as a video. Now remember, when we were combining the books before, we were going to export them as EPUBs. That way all the pages would be interactive, we could combine them, all the audio and video would stay intact. Exporting as an EPUB is awesome if you want your kids to open up books in BookReader on another device, or open them up in iBooks, in their iBooks library on their iPad, or on a Mac computer, or if you're going to export it as an EPUB so that you can then submit it to the iBook store and have it as an iBook that's out and about for lots of people to download. If you're going to do that and you tap on export as an EPUB, you have a few different options. You'll see here, this is what we were talking about before with AirDrop. So if you have turned on AirDrop, you might connect to an iOS device like an iPhone, or in this case, you see my computer registers when it's next to my iPad, which you see here. So I could tap this button and it would ping it right over to my MacBook and I could open it up automatically. This is a great option if you know you're going to take kids' books and publish them to the iBook store. You can just ping it over to a MacBook like that, or to another device that you're going to open it up in the iBooks library. You'll also see other options pop up here. This is going to be representative, this top row, of any other apps you have loaded on this particular iPad. And then you'll see down here these standard options as well. So these are the options you'll see pop up when you go to export as an EPUB. If you go to export as a PDF, this is what you'll want to do if you plan on printing out the books. Remember, when you export as a PDF, it's just like printing a page of paper or taking a snapshot of it. You will no longer be able to press play on videos because it's just like a piece of paper. You won't be able to play audio because it's just like a piece of paper. So if you know your final product is going to be shared with your audience as a PDF, that is totally fine. You just want to plan accordingly. So you might not want your kids to record audio for this because it's going to be printed out. So just things to think about as you're identifying your audience and how your kids are going to connect with them. If you go to export as an EPUB, you'll see that you have the option of single pages or side-by-side pages. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, but you'll want to just think through that over the course of the product. If you want to export as a video, this is a wonderful option that I love as well. This is great if you want to have kids share this creation with the widest of audiences, because a video could be played on any device, whether it's EPUB friendly or iBook friendly or not, and it keeps the audio and video intact within the book. So when I go ahead and hit export as video, most of my options here are the same, right? I could ping it to my Mac and upload it to YouTube. I could share it in Seesaw, but I also have this save video option. This is pretty fantastic because you can save it as a video, and then say you have kids all making books and they save it as videos, then you can download all of them. You can even mash them together in iMovie and play them all on rotation, or you can easily upload them to social media so that everyone can see. As you start placing any questions you have in this question box on the right-hand side, I'd also love you to share one way you could imagine your students creating something for a current unit of study. Maybe you're deep into ecosystems or a westward expansion unit or community project. What is one type of product your students could create with Book Creator, and who could they share it with? Go ahead and type into the question box your idea of what they could make and who they could share it with, and then I'll go ahead and answer any other questions that have popped up here as well. Yep, you could definitely create some science books that could be shared with science specialists. Awesome, Diana. Kathy mentioned creating an ABC book for 4K students in your district, all about different seasons. Awesome. I love how we're thinking about the project and the audience together. Jess mentioned sharing student creations with family members and via Seesaw, so Seesaw being the way to do that. So having students share some of their stories about field trips with the staff of the place that they went to. Awesome. Jess mentioned sharing the QR code that's connected to the file. So you save as a video file, you connect a QR code. Awesome. Love that. Great. So Joe asked about transferring an EPUB file to your Mac. So yeah, you would transfer it the way I just showed, maybe with AirDrop, maybe with your mail, and then publishing on the iBook store. If you have an iConnect account or iTunes Connect account, that gives you the option to take any EPUB files you've made, whether it's with Book Creator or another tool, and you can upload it to the iBook store that way. There's a few steps to follow along with that process. I've uploaded multiple books to the iBook store. It does ask you to follow a handful of steps, but it's pretty doable, and I would encourage you to check it out. I know that I've taken student work that we've made, uploaded it to the iBook store, and then you can actually go and track and see who's downloaded it, not the names of the people, but what country they live in. Really cool if you're planning on sharing your kids' work with social media as well. So thank you so much for joining this webinar on Book Creator and publishing with authentic audiences. It's so important to give kids a purpose for their creations, and identifying that authentic audience and giving them a fantastic tool like Book Creator is one way to go about it. So I hope that you will share any creations that your kids make on social media with that Twitter hashtag Book Creator. You can go to bookcreator.com to get some more ideas and inspiration. And of course, if you have any questions after today, you're looking for that YouTube channel, you want to participate in some upcoming Twitter chats, you can go ahead and follow Book Creator app on Twitter, or shoot me an email, monica@classtechtips.com. I love hearing what happens in your classrooms and what kind of neat things you're doing with Book Creator. So please feel free to reach out or ask any questions. And I appreciate everyone who was able to participate and hang out with us tonight. If you are watching this webinar live, you can check out our other webinars in the Book Creators YouTube channel. If you're watching with us on recording, you can find some more inspiration there as well. So thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.